Welcome back to another Gadget Lab podcast. I am Mike Isaac.
I'm Michael Calori.
And I am back in town from San Diego. Last week I was at a CTIA mobile conference. That was quite possibly the most boring thing I've ever been to in my entire life.
Did they serve ice cream?
They had no ice cream. They had crappy deli meats that kind of like started sweating in the heat of San Diego. But other than that, I mean, the conference sucked. But I am back. So, and we've got a week full of news, as always. Tell me about the first thing.
Is there any ice cream?
That was a good segue. There is ice cream, actually. Google finally debuted Android 4.0 Ice Cream Sandwich, which is the next generation of the Android software for Google's for mobile phones. Right?
So this brings like the Google tablet interface and the Google phone interface together, right?
Right. Basically, Google has had a difficult time. I mean, their software is on a billion different, manufacturers' tablets, a billion different manufacturers' phones, and people writing code for the hardware don't know basically how to fit it all onto the number of different screen sizes out there, right? Which is different from Apple, which has only a handful of devices. So with Android 4.0, they basically they took both the tablet and the phone interface and combined it into one magical, tasty Android.
Big sandwich of creamy Android-y goodness.
Yeah, that's all right. So anyway,
what's the cool stuff in it?
It was rad. It was. I went down to Google on Wednesday of this week, and they showed me the debut device, the flagship device that they. So as you know, every new version of Android they launch with a specific phone, right?
Right.
So this time it's Samsung's Galaxy Nexus, which is it was a cool phone. Like I got it. I finally got to play with it before it comes out in November. And it's a big sort of 4.65 inch screen.
Whoa.
So yeah, pretty big.
AMOLED.
Right, Super AMOLED.
Super AMOLED.
It's LTE 4G, so it's actually going to be a fast. They're not saying what carrier quite yet, but I'm pretty sure.
What are the possibilities?
Obviously Verizon, T-Mobile.
Right.
T-Mobile might be. T-Mobile has been the Nexus 1, the Nexus S, they first released it on that. But if it's 4G, then it's probably going to be Verizon or AT&T or maybe Sprint.
Okay.
Anyway, so but the hardware was less compelling to me than the software, honestly. It was basically every complaint you always hear about Android being sort of rough around the edges or not feeling as good as iOS. They kind of focused on that. The team sort of basically polished every little thing from changing the font, right? To they created their own font. They made Roboto, which is
so controversial.
This is actually getting a lot of attention in the press, right?
It is. It's a mishmash of other fonts.
They ripped off Helvetica,
yeah,
something like that.
Right, whatever.
Anyway, that's for the font nerds out there. So they did that, and then they did away with the physical buttons on the phones. So they have these sort of virtual buttons on the phones now, kind of like they did in Honeycomb. And they made a lot of sort of tweaks to the different Google proprietary applications. It was a really big overhaul. And then one of my favorite things, or two of my favorite things actually, one was they have this feature where it uses, it's called Face Unlock, right? So if my phone's locked and I want to unlock it, I can set an option to make it recognize my face using this facial recognition technology in order to unlock my phone.
So what if I just hold up a picture of your face?
I asked him that. He said it's kind of imperfect right now. That might actually work. So they're kind of in the beta stages of working the kinks out of that.
Well, I'm not really that worried about somebody walking around with a full-size printout of my face just so they can get into my phone.
You are on Podcast Weekly. You never know how many people out there save your picture.
That's true. Freeze frame.
Yeah.
What else? Aside from all the issues with Ice Cream Sandwich and that new phone, there is still another carrier. I'm sorry, not a carrier. A phone manufacturer out there treading their own waters.
Yeah.
Which is Nokia, or what did they say over there? Nokia.
Nokia, like W.
This is a brand new Nokia phone, and
Yes.
what does it run for operating system?
So this runs the Harmattan built on top of Migo, which is a Linux-based platform that
Open
is
source?
Open source. The problem is it's not Nokia's future, right? They had already Nokia and Microsoft are working together to bring Microsoft's Windows Phone 7 platform to future Nokia phones. We're probably going to see one next year, something like that. Maybe soon. Nokia World's coming up.
Is that going to happen in Europe before it happens in the United States?
Maybe they test it out over there and see how it does, and then bring it over here. But anyway, this doesn't have that. This has a software that essentially has a very dated shelf life, you know, over the next. But so I mean, that was my main sort of quibble. But it's actually kind of a nice phone. Like it's got some sort of WebOS type characteristics. You can open up applications and then swipe them to the side.
Yeah, I noticed there's no real hard buttons on the screen.
Right. Also a buttonless phone. It's kind of, I mean, if you're used to Android or iOS, there's a little bit of a learning curve. But, you know, I mean, I also like the sort of industrial design of it. It's cute, right? It looks like a giant.
Yeah, this is not a case. This is actually the shell of the phone.
Right, exactly. It
It's
comes
blue.
in this. It comes in, cyan, and then magenta, and then black. All process colors.
Wow,
basically.
that's interesting. Is there a clear version?
There's not. But,
You know, I think with things like this, it's kind of interesting because, you know, yeah, you're not going to have the great rich app story behind it to sell people on. But if you want just like a really good smartphone from a company that's proven itself to be a powerhouse, it's a good choice. And as far as the learning curve goes, it's a kind of thing where Android, there's so many skins on Android. I kind of feel like there's a learning curve even when you pick up an Android phone from a different manufacturer.
That's totally true. That's
Right.
totally true. You have to learn all over every time.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, you know, if you are into learning something new and don't mind your phone being outdated in a few months, I would say go pick one up. Otherwise, I don't know.
Maybe you only care about Apple.
Right.
If that's the case, we have Christina.
Christina Bonington is up next to talk about the world of Apple and all that's going on this week. Hey, Christina.
Hey, Mike.
So, what's new in Apple's world this week?
So first off, the iPhone 4S is going to be coming to a fourth carrier here in the US.
Oh, T-Mobile?
Nope, C Spire Wireless. It's a carrier
What the
that's
hell is that?
it's a regional carrier. They're actually,
okay.
I mean, a lot of us haven't heard of it. They're based in the South, mostly like Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, and Florida.
Oh, that's really weird. Why is Apple moving to, like, why wouldn't they move to T-Mobile? Why are they moving to Southern Wireless Carrier?
Well,
They need to hit the Texas demographic?
yeah, actually it's not
Sorry,
in Texas, but
Okay.
yeah.
I'm from Texas, so no offense.
Oh, yeah, well, I am too,
Anyway.
so.
Oh,
Yeah, and I also lived in Mississippi. I've been all over. But anyways, so, I mean, there's a couple good reasons why Apple probably brought it down to C Spire Wireless.
Okay.
First off, kind of T-Mobile covers a lot of the same areas that AT&T, Verizon, Sprint already do.
Okay.
So they might be trying to reach a demographic that may not already have easy access
Right.
to the iPhone.
That makes sense.
And then it's also their CDMA.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I mean, that kind of makes sense, but do they have even the similar sort of subscriber base that T-Mobile does? You know, I mean, I know T-Mobile's is dwindling, but
They are the 8th largest carrier in the U.S. So I mean, it's not tiny,
Right.
But I mean, yeah, it's interesting that they chose.
it's
C
just a
Spire over
weird thing to
T-Mobile.
hear. Like, Apple chooses C Spire Wireless. Okay. Anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
So wait for that. Tennesseans or whoever you said was going to get it. There's something else going on too. You had a post about how tablet. What is it? How we're not going to see a 7-inch Apple tablet, something like that.
Right. So I mean,
So what inspired this? I mean, have people been waiting for a 7-inch Apple tablet?
So there's been rumors that there could be an iPad mini, a 7-inch iPad for a while. I mean, there were some back before the iPad 2 even came out. But recently, since the Amazon Kindle Fire came out, there's been different comments that, you know, Apple could be coming out with a budget iPad or a smaller iPad. One analyst said this whole thing, calling it an iPad mini. And so that sparked all these
I like when
rumors.
analysts make up names for Apple products.
Yeah. I actually use that as my signature on my iPhone, except for my iPhone mini, iPad mini, I mean. Yeah, but so...
So you don't think there's going to be, I mean, you don't think there's going to be one, right?
I think anything is possible, but I think it's pretty unlikely.
Okay.
You know, you want to avoid that fragmentation problem that Android has had a problem with, trying to code for all these different size devices. You want to optimize, as a developer, the UI for your device. And so Apple has two, a 3.5-inch iPhone, iPod size screen, and the 9.7-inch iPad. If you add a 7-inch one in there, you know, developers have to, you know, revamp their app for this.
Yeah, that just creates a whole new slew of problems. Okay, I mean, that makes sense, I guess. Although, I mean, it's only one more thing, but still. And plus, Apple would be following Kindle or Amazon's lead here, right? And you said that's not like them at all.
Was that an earthquake?
Earthquake.
I think we just went through an earthquake.
That was definitely an earthquake.
Awesome.
Well, we're okay.
So,
anyways.
Keep going.
Yeah, so the Amazon Kindle Fire broke out, you know, this 7-inch tablet that everyone's excited about. An analyst that I talked to said that a lot of people are more excited about the low price point than the actual 7-inch tablet size, which is possible. And then also Steve Jobs said that 7 inches is just too small for a good tablet experience.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, I'm distracted because we apparently just had an earthquake in California, which is kind of awesome. But we're going to see you guys next week, probably with more Apple rumors and with sort of a first look on Android's ice cream sandwich.